Several years have now passed since Holmes and I found ourselves involved in one of the strangest adventures in my friend's long and distinguished career. During that time, he has been of assistance to kings and queens, as well as scullery maids and hansom drivers. For him, the case has always been of primary importance, far more so than any notoriety or monetary recompense he might have received by choosing to involve himself. At the time of the case, I took copious notes and diligently recorded them in my journals. However, that was such a busy period that I never did get round to organising them until more than half a decade had passed. Like so many other of his cases, this one began in a fairly innocuous manner. The events were not precipitated by anything as frightening as the revelation of the presence of the footprints of a giant hound. Rather, things were set in motion by the appearance of some wayward tallow droppings on the floor of a nearby art gallery. As you might expect, Holmes was intrigued when presented with the situation. And, as you might also expect, once he had picked up the scent, he was like a relentless hound. As a result, we travelled to the village of Royston, and subsequently to various locales in and around Cornwall. At each stop along the way, Holmes found himself presented with an array of clues, as well as a few red herrings, the significance of which I am certain would have eluded a lesser intellect. During our excursions, we were confronted by formidable adversaries. We also received assistance from some invaluable allies. On more than one occasion, our lives were in imminent danger. Despite the obstacles, Holmes persevered, and in the end, he triumphed where I am certain so many others might have thrown in the towel and resigned themselves to defeat. After all, who would have known? Obviously, Holmes would have known, and while he could accept the occasional failure, that acceptance came only after he had expounded every effort to secure the victory for his client, and by extension, himself. Having said that, Holmes pursued this case with the same purpose that he brought to bear on all such endeavours. The result, though satisfying in some way, did little to burnish his reputation, and he earned no great fee at the end of it, despite the tremendous sums involved. No, I'm afraid this case is little more than an example of Holmes's patience and brilliance, as well as his willingness to follow a trifle to the ends of the earth. To do otherwise would have been anathema to his disciplined spirit. Having said that, dear reader, I offer for your consideration the adventure of the Traitorous Templar. Dr. John H. Watson, 13th of March, 1902. Chapter 1. Peace and tranquillity were repugnant to Sherlock Holmes. So after 5 days had passed without a case to break the monotony, my flatmate had become rather irascible. Having forsworn the needle, Sherlock Holmes had decided to while away an hour or two by indulging in one of his favourite pastimes. He would position himself at the window overlooking Baker Street and stand there for hours. From that vantage point, he could watch the comings and goings of the throngs traversing the thoroughfare below. He would then select some passer-by who had caught his attention and begin to analyse that individual's dress, gait, complexion, and other pertinent characteristics, in an effort to ascertain the person's occupation and the business that had brought him or her hither. Although his deductions often went untested, on those occasions when they were scrutinised, he was, as you might expect, seldom wrong regarding the conclusions at which he had arrived. I was reading the paper that fine spring morning in 1895, when my thoughts were suddenly interrupted as Holmes broke the silence, exclaiming, "Hello, what have we here? A fine Clarence with matching stallions. The driver is obviously looking for a house number, and he appears to have found it." After a few seconds he turned to me and said, "Unless I'm very much mistaken, a new client, one with whom I have some slight acquaintance, has come to seek our assistance."
to keep listening to this audiobook. I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.